The elevator chimed softly that Tuesday morning, a sound I rarely heard unless the building manager was checking in. I sat on the balcony of my penthouse on the 42nd floor in downtown Chicago, the autumn wind carrying hints of Lake Michigan. My coffee sat untouched as I reviewed quarterly reports on my tablet, the numbers from my latest venture capital deals in emerging AI fintech firms dancing across the screen. The portfolio had grown steadily, now hovering near 40 million, but I kept my focus sharp, always calculating the next move. The doors opened, and my sister Sophia stepped out, keys jingling triumphantly in her hand. Our mom, Margaret, followed right behind, her expression a familiar mix of patient concern and quiet judgment. "Surprise," Sophia announced, her voice bouncing off the floor-to-ceiling glass walls that framed the glittering city below. She dangled the keys like a hard-won trophy. "I hope you haven't unpacked too much, Emily, because you're out of here by the end of the week. I bought this place." I set the tablet down carefully, my pulse quickening as confusion settled in. Sophia looked every bit the successful real estate agent she was at Bennett and Associates. Sharp blazer, confident stance, heels echoing on the marble. Mom stepped closer with that look she'd honed over years of quiet disappointment. "Sweetheart, we know you've been struggling." Sophia found a solution that works for everyone. Sophia nodded, still jingling the keys. "Closing was yesterday. The whole transaction took 3 weeks. I tried telling you last month, but you kept dodging my calls." She wasn't wrong about the calls. Sophia only reached out when she needed something, usually money she assumed I didn't have, or to highlight her latest sale. She'd closed over 50 million in properties last year, and our parents never stopped praising her for it. "You bought this penthouse?" I asked, keeping my voice steady as I stood up. "For 2.3 million, Sophia said proudly. "Below market." The seller was motivated. Mom pulled out a measuring tape, actually produced it from her purse, and began sizing up the living room. "We're knocking out this wall to open the space. The kitchen needs a full reno, it's so dated." Sophia has excellent taste. I watched them move through the space like they already owned it. Sophia pointed at walls, suggesting changes. Mom jotted notes on her phone. They walked right past the original abstract painting I'd acquired at auction for $200,000, past the custom walnut bookshelves lined with rare first editions on economics and technology. They didn't notice any of it. They never had. "Where did you think I lived?" I asked quietly, the words hanging in the air. Sophia paused mid-measurement. "What?" Mom answered for her. "Well, we figured you were renting a small studio somewhere. When you stopped asking us for money, we assumed you'd found some entry-level job. We didn't want to embarrass you by prying." "I never asked for money," I thought, but said nothing at first. "Exactly," Mom continued gently. "Because you knew we'd have to say no. We learned our lesson after funding that expensive college degree you never really used. That degree was in computer science from Stanford. I'd graduated summa cum laude in 2017, but they'd never asked about my career path. They simply decided I'd failed quietly." Sophia walked to the windows, admiring the view. "This view alone is worth $1 million. I can't believe you've been squatting here. The previous owner must have been incredibly lenient." "Squatting." The word landed heavily. "However you got in," Sophia said dismissively. "It doesn't matter now. I own it. I have the deed. The title, everything. My lawyer checked it thoroughly." "Who sold it to you?" I asked, already sensing the pieces. Sophia scrolled through emails on her phone. "A man named Scott Harlan. He represented the owner through an investment company, Harbor Holdings LLC. They had all the documentation. My lawyer, Rebecca Torres, verified everything. Title search came back clean. I knew Rebecca. She'd handled a past acquisition for me. Sophia's eyes narrowed when I asked to see the papers.
Why?
Planning to claim some right to stay? Legally. You don't have any. I could have you removed today. But I'm being generous. 1 week. The tension thickened as they continued their tour, oblivious to the truth building beneath their assumptions. The doorbell rang unexpectedly. We all turned toward the elevator. I hadn't buzzed anyone up. The concierge knew better. I approached the door, peering through the peephole. It was Graham Ellis, the building manager, holding a leather folder, with the concierge John looking uneasy behind him. I opened the door. Graham spoke formally. Miss Harper, I apologize for the interruption. John alerted me to your visitors, and I felt it necessary to address this immediately. Sophia stepped forward aggressively. I'm the new owner. You work for me now. Graham's face stayed neutral. May I come in? He entered, nodding politely. John stayed in the hall. Miss Harper, Graham addressed me. I received a concerning call from our legal department this morning. Someone attempted to file a deed transfer for this property. Sophia pulled out her phone. That was me. I closed yesterday. Here's the documentation. Graham glanced briefly, then opened his folder. Miss Sophia Harper, you were contacted 3 weeks ago by a man claiming to represent Harbor Holdings, LLC. Correct, she said confidently. They were selling on behalf of the owner. Some LLC. It's common in luxury real estate for privacy. Graham pulled out another document. Harbor Holdings, LLC does own properties in the city. However, it has never owned this penthouse, Unit 4201 in Lakeshore Tower. The seller used the company's name to lend credibility to the scam. The color drained from Sophia's face. That's impossible. My lawyer verified it. Graham interrupted gently. Your lawyer verified that the company exists, which it does. But they didn't confirm ownership of this specific property. Because it doesn't own it. Mom sank onto the sofa. This is a mistake. Sophia is a professional. Graham turned to me. Miss Harper, with your permission, I need to inform them of the actual ownership. I nodded. Graham presented the document. This penthouse has been owned by Miss Emily Harper since August 2020. Purchased for $2.9 million in cash. The deed is registered properly with Cook County. No transfer since. Sophia's keys clattered to the floor. That's impossible, Sophia whispered, her voice cracking. Emily doesn't have that kind of money. She's been unemployed for years. I'd never been unemployed. But the assumption had lingered for 6 years like an unspoken family truth. Graham continued calmly. Miss Harper pays her HOA fees quarterly. Always on time. She also owns Unit 312 in this building, rented to a young couple, plus 2 commercial spaces downtown near the Loop. Additionally, she holds stakes in several tech ventures. Mom shook her head slowly. Emily, if this is true, why let us believe? I met her gaze evenly. I never let you believe anything. You assumed. You never asked what I did for work. You never asked where I lived. When I stopped attending family dinners, you decided I was ashamed of failing. You never considered I might just be busy building something real. Sophia's face shifted from pale to flushed red. You let me spend $2.3 million on fake documents? I didn't know you were buying fraudulent papers, I replied. You didn't tell me. You stopped calling for months. When you reached out last month, I was in San Francisco closing a major acquisition. I assumed you wanted another loan, like the ones in 2021. I never borrowed from you, Sophia snapped defensively. I walked to my home office and returned with a folder containing bank statements, 3 wire transfers totaling $90,000, each marked as a loan with signed promissory notes. You told me you needed capital to launch your real estate career. I gave it. Repayments were supposed to start in 2022. I never pressed because I thought family mattered more than money. Sophia stared at the papers as if they were in another language. Graham spoke kindly but firmly. Miss Harper, contact the police immediately. This is deed fraud, a serious federal crime. The seller is likely part of an organized ring. I asked how much she'd lost. She couldn't meet my eyes. The down payment, $460,000. The rest was finance. Mom made a distressed sound. Graham explained the bank loan wouldn't proceed. Title insurance would flag the fraud. But the down payment, wired to a fake escrow, was likely gone. Sophia sat beside Mom, hands trembling. My lawyer said wires were standard for high-end cash deals. A fake escrow account, I said softly. Sophia finally looked up, eyes wide with dawning realization. You've owned this since 2020? Yes. And lived here the whole time? Yes. I recalled the Christmas fight 3 years ago when Dad predicted I'd end up homeless. I'd returned here to this view, feeling pity for their certainty in my failure. Mom's voice was small. What do you actually do? Emily, I'm a venture capital analyst specializing in fintech and AI securities. I started my firm, Harper Analytics, in 2018 after a signing bonus from a short stint at a major bank. I lived frugally in a tiny studio, saved aggressively, and built my first portfolio. By 2020, I bought this place cash. Now assets exceed $40 million. Sophia began crying quietly, tears tracing her cheeks. You're a millionaire. Yes. And we've treated you like a charity case. Yes. Graham cleared his throat. The scammer ran a sophisticated operation, fake cards, website, office address. Your sister isn't the first victim. We've seen similar reports recently. It should make you feel better, I told Sophia. It means professionals targeted you. Not that you're naive. Mom stood. Emily, I don't know what to say. Start with why you thought so little of me, I suggested. I graduated Stanford with honors, had offers from top firms, but I chose my own path. And you assumed failure because it didn't match your expectations. You stopped coming to events, Mom defended. Stopped answering calls. What were we supposed to think? Maybe ask instead of assume? Maybe consider I had my own life. The room felt heavy with unspoken years of distance. Sophia wiped her eyes. I need to call the police. My lawyer. The bank. She asked to use my phone since hers was dying. I handed it over, and she walked to the balcony. The silence stretched. Dad would be devastated. Mom said. He hadn't spoken to me in 2 years since I refused to fund his friend's risky restaurant. I'd analyzed it, poor location, no plan, and been proven right when it failed. Graham mentioned possible trespassing charges. No, I said. They're family. It was a mistake. A mistake that nearly led to a legal eviction, he noted, but respected my decision. He explained how security flagged the suspicious filing since there was no record of my sale. How did you know to come up? I asked. John saw the keys and knew only you were authorized. Graham left after ensuring everything was documented. Sophia returned. Police are coming. Lawyer contacting FBI, cross state lines involved. We stood awkwardly. I have a call with Singapore investors soon, I said. Need privacy. They prepared to leave. Sophia hesitated. Emily, I'm sorry for assuming. For being dismissive. Sorry you got caught wrong. Or truly sorry. She flinched. Both. But mostly the first. I've been a terrible sister. Yes. You have. Is there a way to fix this? I considered. Start by telling Dad and the family the full truth, no excuses. Pay back the loans. Treat me as an equal. Not a failure or a charity case. Mom promised they'd try. Graham escorted them out. Sophia turned at the elevator. Your home is beautiful. I should have said that first. After they left, I stood at the windows overlooking the city, processing the morning's chaos. The Singapore call connected on time. I focused on the numbers. Negotiating terms for a promising AI startup. Work had always been my anchor, the place where assumptions didn't cloud judgment. But the family's words lingered, stirring old wounds. 3 weeks later, Sophia returned for coffee, looking thinner with dark circles under her eyes. The FBI investigation continued. Her lawyer identified 2 other victims of the same scammer, building a stronger case. Any chance of recovering the money? I asked, handing her an espresso. Less than 10%, she admitted. It bounced through shell companies overseas, converted to crypto. I'm sorry, don't be. I earned this lesson the hard way. She glanced around the penthouse. I still can't believe you've lived here all this time. I've shown clients units in this building 100 times. I was always right here, I said. You just weren't looking. She nodded. Dad wants a family dinner. He asked me to invite you because he doubts you'll answer his call. He was right. On one condition, my chosen restaurant. I pay. No arguments. Deal. The dinner took place 2 nights later at a Michelin-starred spot on the ground floor of my building. The staff knew me well. The chef prepared my favorites without prompting. Dad arrived first, uncomfortable in a rarely worn suit. His consulting firm had struggled post-pandemic. Unknown to him, I'd quietly acquired and forgiven some of his debts. Mom arrived next, then Sophia. We sat at a corner table with city lights sparkling below. This looks expensive, Dad noted, scanning the menu. I can afford it, I replied simply. He set the menu down, really looking at me for the first time in years. Sophia told us everything: the penthouse, your firm, the portfolio. I've spent weeks wondering where I failed as a father. You assumed I needed to follow your exact path to succeed, I said. When I chose differently, you labeled it failure instead of trusting I'd figure it out. You were always so quiet, so reserved, Mom added. We thought you lacked confidence. I was observing, analyzing. That's my strength. I watch markets, calculate risks, make informed decisions. Not broadcasting every step doesn't mean inaction. The server poured pre-ordered 2015 Bordeaux, an $800 bottle. Their faces showed surprise. Dad spoke softly. I'm proud of you, Emily. I should have said it years ago. Should have trusted we raised you to find your way. It was the apology I'd waited for. Late but genuine. Thank you. Sophia raised her glass. To Emily, the most successful among us. And humble enough not to brag. We clinked glasses. Conversation flowed easier. I shared details of my work. Early days at a bank. Launching Harper Analytics with saved bonuses. Living minimally to invest wisely. Acquiring properties strategically. They listened actively, asking thoughtful questions instead of obligatory ones. As dessert arrived, Dad slid an envelope across the table. A check for the restaurant investment I pushed. Plus interest. You were right, it was a bad idea. I'm sorry. The check was for $18,000. I can't accept this. You need it more. That's why I must give it, Dad insisted. I need to show I'm as principled as my daughter. You were right, I was wrong. Let me pay the cost. I accepted because he needed that gesture of accountability. Later, I donated to support small business grants. That night back in the penthouse, I reflected at the windows. Somewhere a scammer held Sophia's down payment. Somewhere my family dissected the revelations. Here, possibility emerged, not full forgiveness yet, but hope they could see me clearly. My phone buzzed. Sophia's text. Thank you for dinner. For not giving up when we did. I replied. Family doesn't give up. We just need reminders why we're family. She responded eventually. I'm working on remembering. Good night. Successful businesswoman sister. I smiled. Just Emily is fine. The city lights below represented countless stories of fortune built and lost quietly. I built mine without fanfare, without approval, and now they knew its worth exceeded any penthouse view. Weeks passed. The FBI made progress on the fraud ring. Sophia repaid the $90,000 in installments, a humbling process that taught her accountability. We met occasionally for coffee. Conversation stilted at first, but gaining ease as she asked about my deals genuinely. One afternoon, she confessed the depth of her regret. I was so focused on my own success, proving myself to Mom and Dad, that I projected failure onto you. It was easier than admitting you might have outdone us quietly. I nodded. Assumptions protect egos, but blind us. The real cost was years of distance. Mom called more frequently, sharing small updates and asking about my life. Dad sent occasional thoughtful messages, avoiding pressure. The family dynamic shifted slowly toward mutual respect. I updated my visitor list to include them freely. Yet echoes remained. At a holiday gathering, old habits surfaced briefly, subtle comments about risky investments, but they caught themselves, apologizing quickly. Progress, not perfection. Months later, as spring bloomed over Chicago, I hosted a small dinner in the Penthouse. Sophia arrived with a bottle of good wine, Mom with flowers, Dad with a sincere hug. We toasted not to past wounds, but future understanding. To seeing each other clearly, I said. Conversation turned to lessons learned. Sophia shared how the scam humbled her professionally. She now double-checked titles rigorously and educated clients on fraud risks. Dad admitted his own investment missteps and how my analysis style could have helped earlier. Mom reflected on how parental expectations sometimes masked fear of children's independence. I shared a vulnerable moment, early career doubts when living frugally while peers flaunted lifestyles, wondering if my quiet path was wrong. But persistence proved it right. The evening ended warmly, with promises of more regular contact. Alone afterward, I pondered the moral weight. What if the scam hadn't been exposed? Would assumptions have destroyed relationships irreparably? Success doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers until crisis forces listening. The question lingers. How often do we dismiss loved ones based on expectations rather than evidence? My family learned, painfully, but the shift brought hope. In the end, the greatest wealth wasn't millions in assets, but the possibility of genuine connection rebuilt on truth. The city continued its rhythm below, full of hidden stories like mine. I'd proven myself on my terms, and now, perhaps, my family understood the value of quiet triumphs most of all.